negotiation and tips for effective salary and benefit negotiation. And let me just add that negotiation is very important. It's one of the most important tools in your profession and in your business and whichever way you find yourself. Now, like I always will say something, in a very functional environment, right? These demands should not be coming up.
Okay.
And I remember having this conversation last week where I was talking about how an employer should be able to know who deserves what. So, and you'd know that by the people who align to the goals and the vision and who brings result. And now result is not who does what you want. Results, the person who brings result, right, is the person who contributes to the overall growth and the development of your organization. Now, the idea of our organization, or one of the major goals of our organization, is to be the number one broadcast station in Nigeria and maybe contest globally, because of course, you know, we have an online platform that allows users from different parts of the world to connect with us here on radio. Now, the one who connects, or the one who does the job, or who aligns with the vision, is not just the one who handles a part that you like. Okay. Maybe as an employer, the part of the organization that you prioritize is the people who maybe the marketers.
Okay.
Right. So you can't say that the person who does a good job is only the marketer because you are most interested in the marketing arm of the organization. Right. But the people who do well in the organization are people who contribute to the overall goal. Yes, the overall goal is becoming the number one broadcast station. And as a broadcast station, the marketers are on their toes doing their jobs. The presenters are on their toes doing their jobs. The IT guys are on their toes doing their jobs. And the production guys are on their toes doing their jobs. So the efficiency and how do I put it now? The efficiency of a person should not be capitalized on a particular area. It should be the holistic contribution to the growth of the organization. So like I said from the start of the conversation, these things in a very efficient system, these things should not even be demanded. As an employer, you know the bit that your employee does to contributing to the growth, the overall growth and the development of your organization. So pay them what they deserve. Now, the reason for this conversation is nobody hands your right over to you unless you demand it.
That's right.
And that's why we are having this conversation. In an instance where your employer gets busy with other things and they are not able to contribute in the way that you desire them to contribute to you, there are certain demands that can be made, and this is it. Now, this particular topic is one I think we have treated it before, long before now, and this is just basically us refreshing our minds on what we talked about. And let me tell you one thing. The reason a lot of people step back from wanting to negotiate with their employers is because of loyalty or perceived loyalty. And I wrote something down here. I'm trying to get this conversation. Now, it's a very, very, I personally am deafened by people saying, oh, I'm loyal to the job, so that's why I cannot demand this thing. I need to be able to give my employer what he wants. But what you want is also as important as what the employer wants. Because the truth is, the relationship between the employer and the employee is symbiotic. I get from you, you also get from me. It's not a one-sided relationship. And if it becomes a one-sided relationship, it's either you as the employee should fire the employer, should fire the employee, because it obviously means that you are not getting value for what you pay that person. That means it's a one-sided relationship. And as an employee, if you don't get the accolade, the entitlement, the benefit that comes with doing your job effectively well, you should reconsider better offers and you should reconsider exposing yourself to bigger opportunities. Now, in your place of work, it is either you are learning or you are earning. Some people are lucky to have both. They are learning and they are earning at their job place. But the truth is, no matter how loyal you are, you should be able to take one of these home. Learning or earning. It's either the money they are paying you is good enough for you to have you sit there for a very long time, or it is creating opportunities or platforms for you to open up to better offers. But if your organization is not affording you any of this, learning or earning, it's about time for you to reconsider what you are doing there, really.
That's so right. And you might be wondering also that while we having this conversation, there are people that have been working in a particular place for a very long time, right? And no matter how much of impact they make, no matter how they try to, better themselves, their salary still remains the same. And it seems like they don't always have the confidence to say, why am I working here for so long, contributing so much, yet my salary is still the same? I think you should have that conversation. And this is because today, as we are discussing the benefits of negotiating, it's to enable you advocate for your worth and secure a fair compensation package that reflects your value to the organization that you're working for or working with. Because sometimes without this negotiation, employees may be undervalued and underpaid. And that is just the truth. And at the end of the day, you are doing what you love, but you are not getting the benefits or the compensation as it's supposed to come. So at the end of the day, even the passion that you started with, it's definitely going to go off balance. So it's important that that negotiation is there. It's important that you have that conversation. And I would say that for those who are potential employees, they are quite lucky because maybe you have the chance of saying it the way it is before you get into the system.
Interview level.
Yes. So I'll also be looking at it from the interview level because, when you get into the system, it's even more complex than someone that is just coming in. Because someone that is on the verge of coming in, it's possible for you could walk away at any time.
Yeah.
But when you've already established your balance at a particular job, leaving it just like that, especially when you have nothing to resort to after that, it's always not easy. So this, for the benefit of this conversation, we are looking at it from the perspective of those who are potential employees, and then subsequently we will get into those who are already employed and why they should ask for that pay rise. Now let's look at some of the valuable tips that we have here. We have categorized this in different angles, and the first one is the fact that preparation is key. Yes, because you don't just have to jump up and go and say this is the salary you want. You need to prepare your mind. You need to prepare both physically and mentally to understand what you actually want. And this involves researching your market value. And then there are so many resources for you to use, and thank God to technology, thank God to the internet, that these days we have a lot of professionals who are giving this information for free, especially on LinkedIn. If you go there now, I know some people still have some kind of notion about that app, but I would say that LinkedIn has a way of helping to build you professionally. So you could resort to LinkedIn to determine the average salary for your role in your location or the job. I think there are so many people who give tips there that you could see how they go about it. Even though some people would say sometimes it's difficult to differentiate real from fake, but you should be able to have a discerning spirit that will help you to discern between right and wrong. And then the second option would be, in this preparation, is knowing your worth. Yes, you need to make a list, whether mentally or physically. Make a list of your skills, your qualifications, and the achievements that really demonstrate your value to your potential employer. Because if you're asking for more, that means they will also expect more from you. So if you go on asking for a salary of 500k, there are people that will want you to work. I know that 500k for some people it's nothing actually, but they would want you to sweat it out to prove to them that yes, you're really worth that 500k that you are asking for. And then another thing is for you to set clear goals. The need for setting clear goals can never be overemphasized, and that is why you need to determine your minimum acceptable salary and the benefits as well as your ideal targets. What are you looking at? If it's 300k, if it's 500k, how sustainable is it for you? If it's 150, if it's 100,000, if it's 80k, what are you looking at? So I think these are some of the things that are actually there in the preparation aspect.
All right, just adding a little bit to that, you can negotiate your salary from two doors or through two bases, like you said. You can negotiate your salary based on the market value, what is obtainable in the market, and by your worth. And now when we're talking about negotiating your salary based on what is obtainable in the market, there are industries, right?
Yeah.
And there are rules that govern industries. We all know that if you are employing a tech giant, you'll be paying them from 500 to 700,000. We all know that if you are employing a journalist, you'll be paying them from this amount to that amount. If you are employing, they are trends, market trends. So if you are negotiating your salary, say for instance you are earning 100,000, and according to your market, or according to the market, that is not what is obtainable in that market, right? You can now say, when you're writing to your employer, you can state clearly that based on market trends, the minimum amount that should be paid to such a person is so amount. Then you will liken this demand to organizations that you have seen pay the same amount of money. Now, while I think personally it's not an effective tool, because really whatever is in the market is not really my business, but what I'm offering to you is what my business is, and that is where my worth comes in. I know my skills, I know my qualifications, I know my achievements, and I know the value that I bring to my employer. So what I'm being paid should not be limited to what is obtainable in the market. It should be based on what I'm offering my employer. If you are certain of what you give your employer, right, then you can make certain demands. Although when you are making this demand, put it at the back of your mind what comes into the organization, because an organization that has a net worth of 500,000 and you're asking for a salary of 500,000 is a very unrealistic demand. Know what comes into the organization. That way you are in a better position to negotiate. Okay, I know that this is what comes into the organization. I'm able to increase the net of the organization to ₦1,000,000. I want my salary to be 10%, 20%, 30% of that amount of money. That's a realistic way to bargain, having in mind what comes into the organization. Now let's talk about negotiation strategies. And I know that one of the major reasons a lot of people are afraid, it's because they are not certain of what they're giving, or a lot of people are afraid, especially when it comes to negotiation. So one of the ways to start your negotiation is don't be afraid to ask. There's this rule I tell people all the time. It's either you give me a yes or a no. If you give me a yes, glory to God. If you give me a no, we move ahead. I move to the next. That's how it is. So don't be afraid to ask. Negotiation is basically a conversation between you and your employer. It's not a confrontation. It's not trying to be, how do they call this thing again? Insubordinate. But it's about you conversing with your employer. Okay, I'm trying to negotiate my value. My value increases. If I'm at a job for 2 years and my value does not increase within those 2 years I'm at work, my employer is at liberty to fire me. And I'm saying this in all honesty, right? So the number one thing you have to do in negotiating with your boss or negotiating with your employer is do not be afraid. Be confident in what you are offering and be confident in the request that you're making. The second thing is focus on your value, not on your need. Emphasize your value to your employer rather than your personal financial needs. We're always going to need more money. Right? We're always going to need more money. So if I'm going to my employer to negotiate for a salary increase, I'm not going there to tell my employer that, sir, the money you are paying me is no longer enough. Even though that is valid, my house rent has increased to ₦1,000,000. My transportation from my place of work is now has now experienced a 20% surge. Focus on the value. Now, I know that those are my needs, and they are also very valid. But what I'm going to my employer is dear employer, I appreciate the opportunity you have given to me to work in your organization. And over these years, I have experienced some level of growth in both my personal and my career well-being. However, during my stay in the organization, I've been able to increase the revenue of the organization by 50%, which is not the case which is not, how do I put it now?
I'm just reflecting what you've done.
Exactly. I'm trying to emphasize because many employers are of the opinion that they make their employees. So the employees are in no position whatsoever to make demands. And that is absolutely wrong. The organization does not thrive without the employees. And the employees do not thrive without the employers. So the relationship is co-joined.
Symbiotic.
The moment one party begins to think that they are doing the other party much more favor than the other, the relationship is already biased. And the relationship is already one-sided. And what do you do to one-sided relationships? You renegotiate your contract or renegotiate your stance in that relationship, as the case may be. So, when you are negotiating, do not be afraid to highlight the values that you bring to your organization. Some employers might say, oh, you're not doing anything. It's now your responsibility to say, this is what I'm doing. Within the period that I've been here, if it's in the case of journalism or in the case of what we do, I can say I have increased the station's listenership by 35 to 40%. You know, I can highlight areas that I have directly influenced the organization. If it is the case of buying and selling your business, you can now say that I have diversified the patronage of my organization. Maybe it's not just security operatives. We now have 4 organizations that patronize us as opposed to 1 organization. That is my personal contribution. That is my personal contribution to my organization. And this is what I am highlighting to my employer. Now, the third negotiation strategy will be flexibility. The reason most of us do not get what we want is because we are very rigid with our demand. There should be room for flexibility. So if I'm earning 100,000 and I'm now demanding 300,000 or 400,000 from my employer, now I should not say if my employer does not give me 400,000, I'm not going to work. What I can say is that I'm going to be taking from a range of now you are paying me 100,000. I'll be taking from the range of 150 or 200,000 to 400,000. There should be room for flexibility. Be open to creative solutions and alternative benefits, such as, so now my organization is paying me 100,000 and they're saying, oh, we don't have any other money to give to you, right? What I'm advising is be open to like more creative way of solving the problems. You can now say, I want additional vacation time, or I want professional development opportunities. If you're not going to have money to give to me, then you should open me up to trainings and seminars that will contribute to the overall goal or contribute to my own growth, my personal growth and personal development as well. So it's super important for you to be open, to have creative solutions and be realistic about your demand to your organization. Flexibility is key. Now, the fourth negotiation strategy would be using silence to your advantage. Now, don't be afraid of silence, because I know a lot of people, some employers, when you start to make that demand, they give you silent treatment or what have you. Do not be afraid of silence during the negotiation. Use it to think before responding, or wait for the employer to make a concession. Because when the employer goes silent, a lot of us start thinking, oh, my employer is angry with me, my employer is going to fire me. Any organization, any right-thinking organization would not fire an employee at the point of negotiation. It's either we come to a reasonable conclusion or we do not. So what can be done in such a case is, okay, since we have not come to a reasonable conclusion, can we revisit this matter another time as an employer? Okay, yes, go and think about it. You are offering 400,000, I'm offering 200,000, and we are not coming to a reasonable conclusion. Both parties go and think about it. When we get back, then we should come to a conclusion. At the time when you come back to revisit that issue, if the both of you are still at loggerheads, it obviously means that the employee will have to go, or the employer will have to concede to the demands of the employee. Any which way, these are the ways that you will negotiate for your salary. Remember to be as respectful as possible, because some of you have the wrong attitude towards negotiation. You go to negotiate with your boss as if you are fighting with your boss. I mean, it's a conversation, and when you're having conversations, it should be reasonable. When you're having conversation, it should be respectful, considering the fundamental and the right, fundamental human rights of your boss. Anyways, considering the right and the feelings of your boss, because remember, some of these bosses actually have you in mind to increase your salary, but they don't generate enough revenue to make such a robust decision on your behalf.
That's really, really on point. And I just want to add that to the fact that you have to focus on value and not necessarily need that, okay, because your rent has been increased, because, oh, well, this is what is happening, inflation in the economic situation and everything. Why not talk about the fact that you spend more hours? Instead of doing this, you go out of your way. Even with meager resources provided by the organization, you still find a way to bring people, to come talk. So many things, depending on the kind of job that you are doing. You show ways that you've been going way way out of your way on behalf of the organization, I think that way a reasonable boss will definitely see why.
How many will do that on your behalf? How many? Very
Honestly,
few.
I think there are still good bosses. So
There are still good
yeah,
bosses,
there are
but
good
very
bosses.
few. Very few bosses.
Maybe
will
that
say,
I've learned from experiences, because some bosses were once good, but because of dealing with people for a very long time, and for the fact that different people come to play in your organization, you just resolve to be a stricter person than you were before. But at the end of the day, the prayer is to meet a good boss. That's just it. And also be a good employee.
Exactly.
Now, let's also look at benefits negotiation. Yes, you know that apart from your salary, there are benefits like health insurance, retirement plan, pay time off. That was the part I was talking about. Some people do overtime. Imagine that your usual time that you're supposed to come to work is let's say, okay, 9 to 5, right? You are spending extra 3 or 4 hours in the office, and sometimes you're closing while every other person is leaving by 5. You are leaving by 9 p.m. So you are doing 9 to 9, and maybe nobody has asked you to do that, but you can actually bring reasons that your boss should see reasons why you are staying till this time, the things that you are able to do this overtime. If there is any benefit, yes, nobody asked you to do that, but do you know that you can actually talk your way to getting those benefits as to the value that you add at the time you're spending extra? Because every time you spend extra in the office, there is something that you are adding. So the next day that somebody is coming, they are not doing that thing that they were that you did, because you're already tackled that, you're already done with it. So it shows some kind of progress. So if you are able to convince your boss in the time of negotiating this, I think it will also help you. And then another thing is for you to be creative. This is where you have to be flexible. Like sometimes people will say, okay, since I'm not doing like a regular job, for instance, let's give the broadcasting sector, for instance. For some people, right from time, it's been known that it's on and off, your off day, your on day. And then other jobs also for the health people, even though there are some doctors, there are some medical experts that they work all around, but the ideal thing is that they should also have the time to rest, because attending to patients, it's not really easy. So if a doctor is coming to work in the morning, another one comes in the afternoon, or another one comes in the evening, runs till the next morning, and then another one takes over. But if that is not the case, I think there should be an arrangement for that. You can also negotiate for that. You know that this negotiation, it's not just about salary, it's not just about the money, it's about having a convenience as well. You could ask your boss for that convenience, especially a job at hours. For instance, we come for certain days, some days we are off. You take that time to refresh, you can do other things, and then you come back. But for some bosses, they feel like, okay, that time is not being enough. I mean, that time, it's like they're giving you so much of laxity, they're giving you so much of freedom and everything. So how do you try to make up, at least if it's for the few days that you are coming to the office? How do you keep up that even in the absence of those other days, your absence is not going to be felt? So I think that it's not just about the financial aspect, it's also about some of the benefits which are not just which are not always monetary. They also have to do with some kind of work arrangement and also some professional development opportunities. I heard you mention about workshops, seminars. There are some companies that would send you on seminars, would send you on workshops, trainings for free. They do that because they know that what they are giving to you, it's something that's innate. They're never going to take it from you, but at least for the time you're with them.
But that contributes actively to the running
at
of
least
the
for the time you're
organization
with
as
them.
well.
And for some organizations, before they send you for these conferences or even workshops, they make you to sign an undertaking. That
you will not lose.
you will not, because imagine someone sending you maybe to Dubai to do COP10. Where are they going to this time? Maybe they will send you to go and do climate change conference. They will send you all the way to America. And then when you come back, you're not tender resignation. But anything can happen, though, because some people
you
go and
see,
not even come back.
that's where the problem is. You're not doing that to tie down. Do you realize
And at least
that
the organization has expectations?
do you
that the person
realize
should
that
stay.
do you realize that if an employee is as he or she should be, the employee will ordinarily, when they go on that training, think of ways to improve the running of the organization by implementing the things that they have learned. It's because most of them feel cheated. So at the slightest opportunity they get, they will
want to
also
leave,
undo the organization. So there needs to be like a balance between, see, I just really hope that people have a high level of both emotional and emotional intelligence and psychological intelligence, especially when it comes to dealing with people. Leadership is a very delicate responsibility, and being a leader requires you to know people separately and not treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
If you're a leader, the greatest need of everybody is to feel valued and appreciated. I think I've said it here many times on radio. But as a leader, it is your responsibility to learn how to deal with people collectively in an organization and independently. So if this person is working for me, that person is working for me, that person is working for me, because this person is able to stay overtime and this one is not able to stay overtime, doesn't make this one inferior to the other one. While the upper hand this person has is the ability to work for longer hours, this person will work for short hours and give you very up to par results as much as the other person will do.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of, most employers make the mistake of comparing one staff to another. We are all unique beings.
Even twins are not the same.
Exactly. Nobody can be me, and I say it all the time that is the greatest advantage that I have over another person. I am me. Nobody else can be me. And the greatest advantage you have over me is that you are you, and I cannot be you no matter how hard I try. So it is it is out of place for an employer to compare their employees, especially to the hearing of their employees. Especially to the hearing of their employees. If you're emotionally intelligent, you know how that tells on the other person.
Yeah.
And you know that see, when you see strife in organizations many times, when you see frictions in organizations, it's the inability of the people at the forefront of these organizations to manage the emotions of the people that they have employed. It's important for you to know the right words to say. Because they work for me doesn't mean they're inferior to me. Okay? Because they are under my service or under my supervision and surveillance does not make them inferior to me. I have seen people learn from their superiors. I've seen superiors learn from their subordinates. So it's one thing to have an open mind as an employer, and it's also another thing to have an open mind as an employee. That way there's a free flow of idea and information from the upper class to the lower class, and from the lower class upward. There's a free flow of information. And now, before we move on to the next thing, I'd like to say something. The reason that a couple of people don't get, most people don't get the desired results when it comes to negotiation of salary is poor and improper timing. The thing is, there are best times to negotiate, and there are best times to have reviews. The best time to negotiate for your salary is during a job offer.
Okay. That was why I talked about the fact that honestly it's easier for you when you are coming into the system than when you're already in.
Exactly.
And tolerated so many other things.
During a job offer, when you're employed, some of you will say, there's one question I've never answered when I'm being employed. What is your salary expectation? How much does your former employer pay? I will never tell you that.
Why do you need to know?
Exactly.
I think they're trying to gauge what you were worth, because really that salary is like your worth. And that is why people get to judge others or even broke shame other people by their salaries, because but it's not always the case. Some people work really hard, but they earn little.
Sometimes it's because the organization has not been able to generate enough revenue to pay you your worth. So sometimes it's not that the employer is wicked. He actually doesn't have it to give you. Do you get? He actually doesn't have it to give you because he's not generating that much money to reward you based on your value. So the ball is now entirely in your court when you know that the employer is not able to afford that. So it's either you find your way or you are willing to settle or help them grow until they are able to pay you that amount of money. But in an instance where the employer is not open to growth and development and still is unwilling to increase your reward on that job, then you obviously have your answer to that. But the best times to negotiate, like I said, is the offer. The employee can tell you, when you're negotiating your salary, especially for a new job, they ask you, okay, how much do you want to be paid? The right thing is you don't jump immediately to say, I want to be paid 500,000. Right? You ask them, what is the offer for this position? That's the easiest way to rope them in. You can't say when the employer asks you, what do you want me? Before you come there, you must have done your research, by the way, about how much is being paid according to market trends, like we said from the start of the show. But let them be the ones to tell you what is the remuneration that is set aside for this position. If that is when they tell you the amount of money, you can now say, thank you for the offer of 350,000 based on the market rate for similar roles and my 5-year experience in this field. I was expecting 350,000 naira. Is there room for adjustment on my salary? Do you get? So when you have told your boss, is there room for improvement? They have told you what they can offer now. You tell them what you are expecting for that salary. You ask them, is there room for any offer? The employer can now say, oh, our budget is tight, but we can offer you 325,000. That's where flexibility comes in. Now you can now say, I appreciate that. If we can include a performance bonus structure, I'll be happy to accept. But most of us, even I have made this mistake many times. We just jump into doing the job. I have passion for the job, so you just get into the job without even negotiating your stance on that job. That's a very big mistake, because as you evolve in the job or as you progress on that job, you might not be able to make certain demands because you have already made the employer to understand that, I like this job, it's more about passion for me. So they know, regardless of what I do to this person, the person prioritizes passion over earning from their passion. Remember the first thing we said from the start of the show. It's either you are learning or you are earning from your job. Some jobs can give you two, learning and earning at the same time. But if you are not getting any one of these things from the place that you work, it's time for you to reconsider sending out application to other places so that you'll be able to afford much more than afford what you deserve, right? Because the truth is, some organization might never be able to pay you, reward you based on your value. Some organizations might never be able to reward you based on your value, and that's not because they are wicked. Number one, the value that you have might not be what they need in the organization. Number two, they might not have enough money to be able to meet up with your reward requirements. So these are some of the reasons that your bonuses or your salaries might not be considered, or increase might not be considered by your organization. So it's super important for you to have this in mind when you're going to negotiate for your salaries.
Yes, and for the fact that you said it's not every organization that can afford your worth, can afford the value you bring. The moment you know that, I think it's okay for you to find your way, so that you don't go and start imposing.
Except you are learning. Except, remember, it's learning
when they will tell you
earning.
It's about passion. You know, you have
no passion. Which passion?
It's
not
about passion now.
It's about learning or earning.
You are being paid with passion or experience, so to say. Except that. But I think it's about knowing when to walk away. And that is bringing us to the final tips that we have to give you. The fact that you need to stay calm and professional. And also, because you talked about being respectful regardless of how you feel, it's very important that you remain calm and professional, because what distinguishes you is how professional you are able to handle certain issues in your office or in your organization, as the case may be. Now, another thing would be being prepared to explain. Yes, you really have a lot of explanations to do, because you are telling your organization to part away with some type of money or some amount of money or some benefits. So you really have to explain why you're requesting certain salary or benefits, so to say. And then the last one would be knowing when to walk away. Now, if the negotiation isn't going in your favor, I think it's important to know when to walk away from the offer. And it's easier for people that are just coming, for those that are potential employees. The moment they offer you what you don't want, it's fine for you to just decline and go. But if you accept it, having the mindset, because some